rise to the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty and everlasting God, who presides over all things in heaven and earth, come and preside over these deliberations so that those that make the decisions may be guided by your wisdom.
Okay, welcome to the December 17th, 2020 City Council work session. At this time, we are not taking public phone calls. This is the council work session to be immediately followed by the regular session of council. And Mr. Ryan.
Hey, good evening. As you can see from your agenda sheets, there is no agenda items on council's agenda. It's all on the mayor. We have the initial resolution and then four new ordinances and two new resolutions. So, Mr. Mayor?
Before we begin, still on council's consent agenda, I'd like to offer a series of amendments to the 2021 budget to be discussed. I first want to say that I completely understand the situation that we are in, and that particularly when it comes to our tax revenues, how much of a shortfall that your administration predicts. And I see that the real estate taxes would go down by 100,000. You're predicting earned income tax to go down by 675, and the business ones are particularly really hard hit. I see that nearly almost $1 million in that, particularly mercantile business tax, and losing half of our professional and business taxes. My goal is to have a balanced budget that is fair to the taxpayers, particularly those low-income, long-term senior citizen homeowners who are on very low Social Security checks, who get hit very hard by the fees that we propose. And I'm glad in the negotiations and talks that we had, Charlie, that you said trust you, and we'll work on some kind of program for discounting those fees. And communications with PFM, they said to me that they see no reason why that couldn't be done. There's nothing that prohibits that in Harrisburg underneath their class city. So I propose a balanced budget by offering the following amendments to place on the agenda at our voting session. I propose an amendment to decrease the overtime budget by $200,000.
I second.
My understanding, Mr. Parliamentarian, you would be the parliamentarian for city council meetings, is that we vote upon that and then that goes on to our voting regular session.
So you're going to do this and have to vote on each individual item right now?
No, this is just to add it to the agenda.
Oh, yeah.
So this should be voted on, correct?
To add to the agenda, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I make the motion.
Well, might as well do each one just because there's no guarantee we're going to be unanimous.
Correct. So Mo, you seconded.
I second it, yep.
Well, you can't do any voting at the work session. No formal business is enacted at the work session.
Yeah, you'll have to wait and do this first thing at the regular session, and then it'll be added to the agenda for consideration before we get to that point.
Should I go through this so we can discuss them if anyone wants to discuss them?
Yeah,
Is that part of the work session?
To discuss this stuff.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, so then we'll add these to the agenda.
And vote at the very beginning of the regular session.
Okay, got it. So an amendment to decrease the overtime budget by $200,000. An amendment to decrease the worker comp budget by $200,000. An amendment to increase line items for the sewer and recycling fees by $600,000, basing that on the articles that were in the newspaper that we have a $600,000 delinquency rate for those two items. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4 amendments, and then we'll vote on those, you said, at the work session. And I believe you have one too, Beth, you told me?
Yeah, I'm also proposing to add an amendment to increase the total fine revenue in the budget by $100,000. Thank you.
No other business, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Ryan, you can continue. Would be Mayor, I believe you would be up for the, introduce your ordinances that you have on the agenda.
Budgets and
I have mine too.
ordinances. We're going to have to take a recess to talk to Tim about it. Before you continue, Mayor, this is a first for us. This is a first what Tony and Beth have proposed. So I propose a brief recess for Kathy and myself, maybe the chairman and Mr. Henry, to discuss how we're going to formalize what was just proposed.
That recess would be at the end of the work session, or are you talking now?
At the end of the work session, yeah.
Okay, all right.
All right. First of all, resolution authorizing the proper city officials to sign any and all necessary documents related to the sale of 101, 103 Westminster Street to Deepak Junma or her designee for a price of $2,500. This is a house that's in pretty bad shape. It's actually the next house I had scheduled to be torn down. But before we did that, we had an interest by these people. And the nice thing is that they're going to put it back on the tax rolls and they're going to rehab that house. So it's a win-win, and now I can use that money to put towards a home on another street that we have identified. Okay. I'm asking that the proper city officials are hereby authorized to take any and all necessary actions related to the sale of 5963 Public Square to George M. Albert, P.E. LLC, or its designee for the purchase price of $400,000. This building has been appraised at $266,000 by Rosen Real Estate back in April. They're offering $400,000, and we have not had any activity on this property. It's been sitting there for the last several years. It's in bad shape. The inside is totally gutted. There is a roof on there and some windows that were added prior to my administration, but the inside is totally gutted. So there's going to be a substantial investment in getting this property going.
Mr. Chairman.
Question, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I ask a question. I think it's great that his property has been empty since the flood, and I know we had a sale that fell through 3 years ago. I see in the budget there's a line item for $426,000 for this sale of city-owned property. Is that $400,000 part of this, or would this be a new $400,000?
No, this is something that was just negotiated recently.
So this would be in addition. So then we should. No, okay. So that would plug that hole in the budget then.
Mayor, I think you're asking, if I understand, you're asking if this is like an additional $400,000 to the general budget. It is not, because there's OCD payments that have to be, OCD has to be reimbursed out of that sale price for the amount that they used initially to purchase the property many years ago.
Okay.
So we don't know what the net's going to be.
It's going to be
to the
roughly,
city for general.
it's roughly 225, I didn't get that for you.
Okay.
Roughly 225,000 that we'd have to reimburse OCED, and then roughly in the tune of about 150,000, maybe a little bit more, would go back into the general fund budget.
So to cover that 426 deadline,
So
right? Just like the
it's
sale of Westminster.
Basically only about 150,000 that will go back in the general fund. But the nice thing is,
Yep.
this money goes back in the OCD budget that we can use for other needs within the city, tearing down properties, those type things.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, let's see where I'm at here. we are asking for the proposed ordinance to add a line item, the amount of $100,000 to the CDBG COVID budget to include a residence emergency assistance program. And to this program, the community development will need to submit a HUD substantial amendment to the 2026 action plan, and it would require 2 readings. But basically, the Emergency Utility Assistance Program is a needs-based assistance program that's open to anyone who rents or owns a home in the city of Wilkes-Barre who has experienced a 30% or greater reduction in total household income, as well as any resident who's on a fixed income and can demonstrate an increase in daily living expenses due to preparing for, preventing, or responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. The assistance provided could equal up to $1,200, and that's up to a 6-month period. So $1,200 over a 6-month period, not $1,200 for 6 months, but $1,200 over 6 months. And I believe that you have a packet identifying the program, so if you have any questions. Also, so, as I said, there's a packet that's in your information manual there that actually goes through a lot of the other areas that we are identifying that we're giving monies to, and Catholic Social Services, Victims Resource, Community Policing, Volunteers America, Domestic Violence, and CEO. These are all part of that plan, but this is in addition to that. So basically what we're saying is we're going to take $100,000 from that budget and allocate it towards helping the needy out that have been adversely affected by the COVID-19. Also, as you're aware, I have 3 ordinances before you tonight which would increase fees for services provided by the city. These increases are necessary and the bare minimum needed to provide the city with the necessary revenue going into 2021. Like most municipalities, the city had a substantial decrease in revenues in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The increases I'm requesting are as follows. Raise the fee for rental inspections from $75 to $100. We're looking at possibly an increase of roughly $60,000 if that does get passed. Raise the recycling fee for services from $50 to $80. As you know, I originally asked for $50 and $50. This is the 3rd or 4th time I've reduced my request. It's now an additional $30, which would equal $80 a year. Raise the fee for residential sewer services from $50 to $85. Once again, I went from $50 down to $35. And doubling the fee for commercial sewer services. Now, this fee has not been increased since 2004. So for 16 years, it has not been increased. And also in your packet, there is information regarding the fees and how they'll be distributed. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it is. I don't see that. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, Charlie. There's one more resolution before you. Be it resolved that the City of Wilkes-Barre, Luzerne County hereby request a Keystone Communities Program grant of $250,000 for the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development to be used for the First National Bank Building, a renovation project. The renovations will include fine dining component and private collaborative meeting rooms. So with this money, they'll use that to renovate the inside. It's going to be a fine dining establishment with also other areas that can be utilized for meetings and so forth. Now, anybody have any questions?
Is the sale of this property contingent upon the receipt of it? It's not, has nothing, they're separate.
It's not contingent, but the purchase price may be.
It's not contingent upon, okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
Mayor, that 200,000, is that coming out of a grant, or where's that money coming from?
Which one are you talking about?
The money to renovate the bank?
Yeah, that's actually a grant that, yes, it's a grant. It's not coming out of the general fund budget. It's actually a Keystone Community Program. It's from the state.
Okay. All right, thank you. One other thing. The three proposed ordinances, the recycling, the rental inspection, and the sewer maintenance, will this balance the budget for '21, and if not, how close? And secondly,
Okay.
will there be, can you assure me, no cuts in services and no layoffs in the city of Wilkes-Barre?
Can I assure you that? No. Will there
Okay.
still be a gap in the budget? Absolutely. From reducing the $50 per year for recycling and for the sewage, we're looking at probably $700,000 gap. I have to make that up somewhere. We do have some things that I just identified that will be some additions to the budget, like hopefully the $170,000 that we're talking about for the sale of First National Bank, which will help. As I said, the increase in the rental fees hopefully will take us another $60,000. So we're looking at things of that nature, Mr. Belusco, that will make up for it. But if you're asking me, can I stand before you today and say there won't be cutbacks in layoffs and other things? No, I can't tell you that, because I have to make up the money somewhere. But I can run the city with those additions that I'm talking to you about, and it will minimalize what would have happened with the layoffs and cuts in services that we identified originally. It will minimize it more than it would have been as drastic as we talked about earlier. So it'll be as minimal as I can make it. There'll be some positions that will not be filled that have already left, and there will be other positions that may be eliminated, but it's going to be quite a difference in answering your question from the original 20 to 30 jobs that I talked about when I came before you to much, much less than that. I don't have a number because, Mike, there's still funding problems in what we're trying to do here. But I'm doing my best to come down as low as I can to cooperate and work with council, as council said they want to work with me. But this last change that we made to come down to $80, that was a last minute thing that we sat with our team and said, we know we're going to have an increase in the difference in the balancing the budget, but we're trying to come someplace where we don't have to do as many layoffs and cutbacks of services. I don't want to cut back any services, neither do you. So it'll minimize it, is what I'm saying. But I can't stand here, Mike, and tell you, looking in your eyes, that will there be any layoffs or cutbacks? I can't say I can't do that, especially with some of the things. I mean, you're talking about reducing overtime. Well, look at today's storm. I mean, we had people working 16-hour shifts today. 16 hours, we had 16 trucks out. People working 16 hours on. That's overtime. I mean, and it's going to be a chunk of overtime just today in one storm, not knowing if we have 3 or 4 more of these storms. I have 3 openings in the police department I haven't filled yet. That's overtime. I have 4 openings. I have 3 openings in the fire department. We had to wait to get new tests taken and get new listings that I'm still waiting on. So we haven't been able to hire. That's overtime. Okay, so the pandemic, there's days we've had 12 people out in DPW. That's overtime. There's times that we've had multiple police officers and firefighters and EMS out on pandemic. That's overtime. So I just caution you that I know it's easy to cut, but realize what you saw today, the service we gave you today to your constituents is because we had to use overtime. If I couldn't use overtime, probably 60% of the streets that we clean today, because I would just use the regular amount of people we have. So keep that in mind when you're voting on whatever reductions you want to make. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman? Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman?
Go ahead.
Yeah, to Mr. Parliamentarian, to make amendments to his ordinances, when would I do that? Should I offer them now or wait?
Well, let's discuss that.
All right, because two of the,
After the work session, we'll discuss it.
2 to 3, I have amendments to offer to the ordinances.
Other than what you
Oh.
just gave me?
Correct,
Oh,
yeah.
to amend ordinances?
To amend 2 of these 3 ordinances, I want to offer an amendment.
2 of the 3 pending ordinances you want to amend.
Correct,
Oh, 2 of the 3 that are pending now?
yes.
I think now would be appropriate to discuss what they might be, but unless you disagree. Since they are pending.
You want to amend the ones that are changing fees?
Correct, not the first one, but the second 2, correct, the recycling and the sewer fees.
Sure, if council has a vote of 3 on those, that's council's prerogative.
So should I offer those amendments now to put it on the agenda that we'll talk about?
Well, you can discuss them now and then we'll have to put something.
Okay, so I propose to offer an amendment to go in line of what I have always said, that I would meet the mayor halfway on this, to reduce it down to $75 each. That meets the mayor halfway. And these other amendments that I have proposed raise the revenue up, so this budget is still a balanced budget that I would see that would not call for any layoffs. So amendment on the recycling fee to $75 and amendment to the sewer fee to $75.
And the third
Fine
one.
with the third, but that stays as it is, no amendment.
All right, so just those 2.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, we have, Mayor, you have nothing else on the agenda, so we're going to go into the council members' presentations, and we'll start with Mr. Belisco.
I just want to compliment DPW for the hell of a job they did today. I appreciate that. The city looks great. I know down in South Wilkes-Barre, I couldn't ask for anything better. They've just been out there all day long. I make sure I wave to each one as they come by, and I've been seeing them all day, but good job, DPW. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Marconi?
Yeah, I do. I do want to echo Mike's statement there. Certainly shout out to the DPW today. Throughout the city, they did an outstanding job. Very much appreciated. Also, we got some rental inspection information, and I just want to let the health and our code department know that they're doing a great job as well, inspecting our rentals, and we just got to keep that going and keep that moving forward. We certainly appreciate that as well. And that is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mrs. McBride?
I want to talk a little bit tonight about the budget and about our plan moving forward. Contrary to what's being said, my colleagues and I do have a plan for the city and for the city's budget. I'm proud to say that tonight, after thoughtful conversations with constituents, my colleagues, and our financial advisors at PFM, my colleagues and I have decided to introduce amendments to the mayor's 2021 budget. These amendments are a result of our public suggestions and after consultation with PFM. In addition, PFM echoed our concerns that simply raising fees will not be sustainable for the city in the long term. Similarly, the large amount of revenue projected in the budget for building permit revenue is good for this year's budget, but will not necessarily help us in 2022. My goal is to provide solutions for the 2021 budget, and so long as I am in this seat, long-term solutions to help make our city more successful both socially and economically. Some long-term solutions that I will be looking into over the course of this year are the following. Seeking to be fully insured for workers' compensation rather than self-insured to reduce volatility. Ensuring that money collected from residents for recycling fees and sewer maintenance fees is only used for that purpose and not put into the general fund. Setting up a separate fund for sewer maintenance fees and recycling fees that would collect on its interest would help to ensure money is there as needed for repairs and increased costs. Establish a board to review applications from low-income families and senior citizens who may need an extension or monetary help with the city's recycling fee or sewer maintenance fee. And lastly, hire a company to help us in healthcare cost negotiations to help reduce our administrative costs through negotiating prices, rebates, and commissions. I believe that these short-term solutions and long-term goals will help put the city on stable financial footing in the years to come, without putting a further burden on the residents who keep our city moving forward. I want to thank Councilman Brooks and Councilman Marconi for their cooperation and hard work in making this budget work for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have anything else to say other than I don't know how we could have done what we did last night and today without the staff that we have. Actually, I think we did very well with the staff that we do have, let alone losing anybody. And I know that Councilman Belisco was just talking about that. We go into January, we go into February, we start losing people. If we have to lay off people, I'm very, very concerned about that because I just know that what we saw today with 100 miles of roads and what was done is not going to happen by itself. And as the mayor mentioned, the overtime, it's inevitable. It happens when it's not just DPW, whether there's a fire, whether it's police overtime, whatever it might be. There's overtime all throughout City Hall, and I know that we are watching that. I know that Charlie McCormick is watching that very closely and doing the best we can do. And I know that that $900,000 number is historical. It wasn't just an arbitrary number that was pulled out of the sky. So hopefully we can cut that back. And if we can, that's great. That's wonderful if we can come in at less than that. But again, we just need to be prepared for these unpredicted and unplanned eventualities. Mr. Ryan, I believe we're going to take a...
Mr.
Go ahead, sir.
You forgot about
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Brooks, you skipped over him.
It's okay.
You've been talking all the
I
time.
know, yeah, all the time. I also want to thank PFM, particularly Gordon Mann, who I spoke to so much now over the last couple of days. And as actually Beth has also said, just re-echo that it was good to bounce all these ideas off of PFM, but really understanding that from them that we need to get our worker comp and overtime and healthcare budget really on the line and under control, and willing to continue to work with PFM and the administration on all these things. And also I want to echo John and Charlie, the numbers that you gave us for the rental inspections. It's great to see, looks like 750 more inspections done this year over 2019, and 60 more licenses issued over 2019. So just looking at these numbers would show to me that the enforcement is working and very well, and hopefully enforcement when it comes to code enforcement, infractions, and quality of life will just increase our budget. And as everyone else said, I want to thank DPW as well. This morning, I went out around 8 o'clock this morning to take photos of all the beautiful architecture we have downtown in the snow. And I came across DPW guys actually stopped to say hello to me, and we had a little chat, and I told them there was these huge grates that one of the plow trucks topped over 2 of them, and they're enormously heavy, and the guy said, okay, he drove around the block, and I met him there, and we put the grates back in, and I congratulate him also on the good job that I'm hearing all across the city. So thank you to DPW.
Okay.
I'm done for now.
Sorry about that. Okay, thank you. Mr. Ryan, do we have anything else at this time? We're going to take a short break until we can
Right.
adjust the agenda.
Yep.
Okay.
Should be an executive session, Tim?
Yep.
Well, we better wait for Tim, just in case.
Well, the mayor, Charlie's not here either.
They're right there at the door.
Well, we could start without them, but
Bill, they're right there at the door.
Okay,
Tim's probably filling them in on
they'll hear us.
how to do things. Just take it easy on us, because we don't know what we're doing. Yeah. Ready?
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty and everlasting God, who presides over all things in heaven and earth, come and preside over these deliberations so that those that make the decisions may be guided by your wisdom.
Okay, good evening, everyone, again. This is the City Council session of December 17th, 2020. Roll call, please, Mr. Ryan.
Okay. Mr. Belusko?
Here.
Mr. Marconi?
Here.
Mrs. McBride?
Present.
Mr. Brooks?
Here.
And Mr. Barrett.
Here.
Also in attendance tonight is Mayor George C. Brown, Administrator Charles McCormick, City Attorney Tim Henry, IT Director Frank Hirschberger, Assistant City Clerk Catherine Payne, Administrative Assistant Lisa Sanfilippo, and I think that's it.
Okay, we have,
Okay, first of all, we have I guess we're going to go into the items, new items proposed by Mr. Brooks and Mrs. McBride. This is an amendment to the City of Wilkes-Barre 2021 budget. These are amendments to that budget. The first one is to decrease the overtime budget by $200,000.
So moved.
Boy, we're just going.
we're not doing vote yet.
Not vote yet?
You gotta do it after public
Ah,
hearing.
I'm sorry, got it, thank you.
And we're decreasing the workers' compensation budget by $200,000. Increasing the sewer fee revenue line item by $300,000. Increasing the recycling fee revenue line item by $300,000. And increasing the total fine, revenue budget by $100,000. Is that correct, Mr. Brooks?
That's correct.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Okay. So those will be voted on last, after we get through what's already on the agenda to begin with.
Two ordinances they're gonna want.
Hmm?
Two ordinances.
Yes, yeah. Okay, and we're going to also amend the two ordinances. One is the mayor's sewer fee will be decreasing from $85 to $75.
Well, there's gonna be a vote to amend.
Right,
Right.
right. And there's also going to be a vote to amend the recycling proposed by the mayor from 80 to 75. Okay, so before we get to them, let's get to the
Ones that are there.
They can do the other two items.
we'll have to, what I'm proposing is to go through after we read the letter on the pending legislation, we're going to get into the consent agenda, resolution minutes, which is one resolution and the minutes. Then we're going to take the individual new item resolutions proposed by the mayor. There's two of those. And then Individually, we're going to take the new item ordinances proposed by the mayor. There's 4 of those. And then we'll get into Mrs. McBride and Mr. Brooks' amendments. Okay, does that make sense?
Are you gonna read the new items so
I
we
have to
know
read
what we're commenting on?
Yes.
Which new items?
Mayor.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm planning on, yep. Okay, so. Okay, so the first. The first item is on the agenda, that the proper city officials are hereby authorized to take any and all necessary actions related to the sale of 101, 103 Westminster Street to Deepak Junja or his designee for a purchase price of $2,500. Okay? And then we're also voting, this is the consent agenda for that resolution, that one item, along with the adoption of the minutes that we have proposed also. So we're going to need a motion and a second and a vote on that.
Jim, don't we
Have to go
Don't
through
we need public comment?
Yes.
Yeah,
So-
we're gonna do public comment on the.
Oh,
I
okay,
just wa-
yes.
We need to announce the new items so that the public knows that
Okay,
what they're commenting on.
okay. So next we have individual new items. The first item is the resolution related to submitting a $250,000 Keystone Community Program grant to be used for the First National Bank Building renovations project. Okay, that's the first one. Second is an ordinance which provides substantial amendment to the Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Plan for Program Year 2020. Those are the two new resolutions submitted by the mayor.
And the sale of
Have
the,
the one to George Albert,
the sale of the bank.
sale of the bank.
Well, those, well, that's an ordinance.
Resolution for the sale of the bank going on the consent agenda?
No, they're gonna be voted on separately, but we're trying to introduce them to the public so that they want to comment.
Okay, I'm not sure where that is. Is that a resolution? It's an ordinance.
It's a resolution related to the sale of 5963 Public Square to George N. Albert for the purchase price of $400,000.
Okay.
And then there's the three new ordinances.
From the three proposed by the mayor?
Yeah, there's three other
Okay, let's read those in.
proposed ordinances. There's,
There is,
fine
they
and
could- there,
penalty fees, you know?
this is the ordinances, right, correct?
Yes.
Okay, the first one is the Community Development Block Grant, which I mentioned. Next is an ordinance amending section 7-230 of chapter 7 of the Wilkes-Barre City Code of Ordinances entitled Fees. And that is rented dwelling / residence notification and tenant registration. Next is an ordinance amending Chapter 30 of the Wilkes-Barre City Code of ordinances entitled Utilities. And next is an ordinance amending section 12-27 of Article 2 of the Chapter 12 of the Wilkes-Barre City Code of Ordinances entitled Garbage and Refuse. Correct?
Yep.
Have I missed it? Have I missed anything else?
No, that would be good.
Okay, if anyone does have any public comment that they wish to offer at this time on any of the proposed ordinances, resolutions, now is the time to call. Feel free to call. You will have 5 minutes to comment. And again, this is only on pending legislation, which was just read into the record.
Please state your name and where you're calling from.
You might have had too long of a break.
Please state your name for the record.
No technical issues here. Hold on.
Kathy. Beth, did you get an answer?
She said she didn't.
Oh.
Yeah, what's up, yeah, right. They got figures the way 2020 would end. calls coming in, because there's nobody, I was finding it strange that nobody's calling before they.
Yeah, I had to, we had it muted, so that the ring would, because I said somebody called 3 times. Muted for the work session. When I went to unmute it, the light didn't go off. Version I did a test earlier.
There's a conference phone we can use if we have to. There we go.
You know, we could do agree with one you have. We have one,
Yeah.
we have one email, kind of pending one.
Well, let's not worry about getting that until we see if we get this resolved.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Please state your name and where you're calling from.
Hello?
Hello? Please state
Yeah.
your name and where
Can you
you're
go on the
calling
council now? Okay, yeah, this is Bob Kalabowski.
from. Okay, go ahead, Bob.
All right. Yeah, I'm just having a little bit of trouble hearing this.
What's the pending legislation, Bob?
Okay, now, does this have to do with the ordinances that they're proposing
Yes,
for the fees?
yes.
Okay, my proposal is this. Can we just do these fees for this, just the upcoming year? So they're not permanent? Is that a possibility that we could do that where it's just for this year? Because Mayor Brown is being, really beat up over this, and all this stuff that happened is not his fault. So would it be possible to just do this for this year? That's what I was wondering if we could do that. And also, at this time, can I ask the council what they're going to give up, or am I not allowed to do that?
No, that's not pending legislation.
Well, it sort of is, because I'm asking them they're planning on increasing all this stuff on us, And I'm wondering, I can't ask them what they're gonna give up now? Do I have to call back?
I have to call back up.
All right, what time?
I don't know.
We just started the session, Bob.
All right, I'll have to call back, because this is like the greatest show on earth. So I'll call back. Bye. Okay, my proposal is this.
Excuse me?
Please state your name and where you're calling from.
Tony Thomas, Wilkes-Barre.
Go ahead.
Mr. Thomas.
All right, I wanted some clarification on the proposed decreases to the overtime budget and the other decrease. Is that more than the 5%, which would, if that's the case, then the budget would be returned to the mayor? I was just curious if, just to have some clarification, if that's 5% or more of a change to the budget.
It's not.
It's not.
No.
It's not, okay. All right, that's all I really wanted clarification on, since that wasn't entirely clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please state your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, Jason Carr from Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania. Regarding the sale of the bank on Public Square, I believe that the same company owns the train station in Wilkes-Barre, and I was wondering if the mayor has put into the sales agreement any terms of performance for that bank to be renovated and put up into a functional use within a certain time period. As the citizens of Wilkes-Barre have seen, this train station has been vacant for many years, and even since the purchase by this same company looking to purchase the bank, it sits there dilapidated and with many times garbage being strewn throughout its premises. So that would be a great question for the mayor to be able to answer. Regarding the $200,000 in overtime, that's just really an arbitrary number. That amount of money will be blown through easily by the city, and at the end of the year, we'll be talking about the reasons why it was double or tripled. So that's a meaningless amendment. The rental licensing, the rental inspections that are being proposed, so be it. Increase it by $25, that's great. I don't believe that there will be much generation of additional revenue because of that, other than the $25, because there's going to be a stagnation of people moving out of properties, not only by edicts from the federal and local governments not to evict people, but as well, Wilkes-Barre has become a very popular place to live. There's nowhere for people to move. I haven't had a tenant move in over a year and a half. And another option for the mayor would be to take the biannual rental licenses and make it an annual process. Instead of every 2 years charging a landlord for a rental license, charge them annually. That's something that you should consider, the mayor. You would generate much more revenue, and you would have a consistent and absolute known amount of money coming in. As well, has the city gone through the proper processes through the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission and the Bureau of Wastewater Management and their guidelines and their requirements when raising the sewer fees? That's something that requires a separate meeting and a separate public comment period in order to raise the sewer fees within a municipality. And I was wondering if they have been followed. I don't think I missed any meetings. I did take the mayor's advice and started buying a newspaper on a daily basis. I did not see a separate meeting to raise the sewer fees. And lastly, I would like to propose an amendment that in 2021, where any funds received from the federal government through the CARES Act or through any other act of Congress on the national level, or through the state of Pennsylvania,
Can't hear me. Mr. Carr,
in the future,
he's gonna have to call back
be
on that.
used to reduce the increases for the residents of Wilkes-Barre commensurate up to $1 million, the amount of the increases passed today for both the sewer and the recycling bills.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Henry, on the question about the sale of the bank building, I'm sure that there is some language in the agreement that requires the buyer to do certain things within a certain period of time. Would that be correct?
There's no agreement of sale yet. You guys are giving us authority tonight to
Go ahead.
prepare an executed agreement of sale with him at that price.
And standard language would have that in, standard agreement would have that in there, that there's some
I wouldn't say a
expectation.
standard agreement would have that in there now.
Okay. Okay,
That doesn't mean there won't be anything in there. I just don't know.
right.
Please state your name for the record.
Sam Troy.
Go ahead, Mr. Troy.
I just need some clarification as well. I know a previous caller asked for that. I think the theme of this meeting could be confusion reigns. Even Mr. Ryan, who's usually straightforward and explicit, is a little off the mark here. I think the council and the mayor owe it to the taxpayers to at least explain. I'm very confused and in the dark. If these amendments, and I'm glad, by the way, the three council members were proactive in getting these amendments together to try to prevent or at least reduce the attempt by the mayor to increase the fees $35 and $30 each. But if somebody could explain to me, I would appreciate it. If these amendments are passed, right, by the proposed by the three council members, does that mean that Mr. Brown's ordinance Mayor Brown's ordinance is rejected and vice versa? I don't imagine that since they proposed it that there could be rejection, since it would be 3-2. I don't see that both could be passed. But if somebody could explain that, I would appreciate it. I would also like to comment, because my time is limited. I did send an email in, but I don't know if it got through because I didn't put my name on it, so I don't know if it was read. That's why I was calling. Also the sale of the bank on Public Square, I didn't see a price for that in the paper, and I was wondering if that price could be provided. I mentioned in my email that maybe the vote on that resolution or whatever it is to sell that property should be tabled, because I don't know if since the city's in such a financial crunch, or fiscal crunch, maybe a better offer could come along, even though, as I understand, this offer was above the market price, the asking price. I don't know specifically what happened there. But I just wanted to also note that if those amendments pass and the price for the fees, the increase in the fees is reduced, I appreciate what those three council members did, but I'm still opposed to any increase in those fees. I think, this thing was brought on by a lot of obliviousness and cavalier attitude to the situation. By the previous administration, and to some extent by this administration, I mean, all summer, council met 3 times. I urged at one point in the council meeting that everybody, council members, the mayor, everybody else who was interested, staff members, should put their heads together and try to prevent this fiscal crisis from occurring, at least to try to mitigate it. But nothing was done. Months and months went by, and here we are behind the 8 ball, so to speak. And we're still facing an increase, which I'm sure the mayor and the council members can empathize with the citizens of this city who are struggling, and in some cases cannot put food on the table because of the pandemic, and on others, the situation was dire even before the pandemic hit for some people. I would just like an explanation or clarification of what the situation is here. What's going to happen here if there's amendments are approved? Our fees are still going to go up, I guess, but not as much as the mayor asked. Maybe somebody can explain that to me. I'm done as far as my agenda comments go, I guess.
Okay, question regarding the bank sale price, as I understand it, is $400,000 if approved by council, and it is above what the assessed value was. I believe it was $266,000, if memory serves me correct. Okay, I'm getting a nod on that. So it's substantially higher than the assessed value that has been in place for a little while now. I know the building has been up for sale for several years. As far as the fees, the mayor's budget had proposed a recycling fee of $80 a year and a sewer maintenance fee of $85 a year. There's a motion to amend that to $75 apiece. That was presented by Mr. Brooks earlier this evening. And is that correct? That is correct, okay. So we will be addressing all of those issues and voting on all of those issues shortly. Any other comments from council on that? We're correct on that? Yep. Okay. Okay. No other calls? Okay, good.
Okay, we're finished on comments on pending legislation, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll now get into the voting, and just for the sake of clarity, we'll take up the consent agenda, which consists of the resolution that I read earlier and the minutes. Motion, second, and vote is needed on that.
Would you clarify that for us, exactly what we're voting on?
The resolution is the proper city officials are hereby authorized to take any and all necessary actions related to the sale. I'm sorry. No, that's the new item. No. No, what I'm referring to is the resolution authorizing the proper city officials to sign any and all necessary documents related to the sale of 101, 103 Westminster Street. What I was starting to read was the sale of the bank building.
Okay.
Okay, so this is to, as Mr. Barrett said, to clarify it. This is on the resolution. This consent agenda consists of the resolution authorizing the proper city officials to sign any and all necessary documents related to the sale of 101, 103 Westminster Street to Deepak Junja or his designee for the purchase price of $2,500. And the consent agenda also consists of the adoption of the minutes that we have before you related to authorities, boards, or commissions. Okay, so we need a motion, a second, and a vote on that consent agenda, which only consists of the two items.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Beth, and who was the second? John? Okay. Mr. Belusco?
Yes.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
And Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have to, so that we don't get confused, next I'm going to address the amendment to the mayor's sewer fee, decreasing it from 85 to 75. A motion, second, and a vote is needed. That
Motion.
is needed to, hold on,
Nope,
is
sorry.
needed to make the amendment to that resolution. So this is just a vote on the amendment. So, Mr. Brooks, you're making the motion on the
Wait.
amendment?
Could I ask a question here, Jim? Are we voting on the mayor's proposal on the resolutions or ordinances?
First, we're voting on the amendment. If everybody agrees to the amendment, if that passes, then we're voting on the resolution, the mayor's resolution as amended,
Yeah, first of all, it's an ordinance.
Yeah.
or ordinance.
If the vote to amend what the mayor's proposed from 85 to 75 is passed, obviously, you would, when you get to that point, you would just vote on that ordinance. At that point, there would be no need to vote on the mayor's ordinance because that would have already been amended.
Okay. So it's the one Tony's proposing,
Right.
not the
Yes,
mayor's? Okay.
yes.
So which one are we doing first?
So first, we're doing the sewer decrease from 85 to 75. And again, it has to, you have to vote on the amendment first. Mr. Brooks has made the motion, and we need a second, and then a vote on the amendment. And then we're going to need a motion and a second on the ordinance as amended.
So the first is gonna be Tony moved on.
Right,
And
motion,
this is on to accept the amendment.
Yes.
correct.
Okay, so who has the second?
Nobody yet.
Nobody.
Second.
John?
Okay, so it's Tony and John?
Yeah.
Okay, this is on the amendment. Mr. Belusko?
No.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
And Mr. Barrett?
No.
Okay, the motion passes on the amendment. So now we're going to need a motion, second, and a vote on the ordinance as amended. Motion,
Motion,
Tony,
Second?
Beth? Okay, Mr. Belusko,
No.
Mr. Marconi,
Yes.
Mrs. McBride,
Yes.
Mr. Brooks,
yes.
and Mr. Barrett.
No.
Okay, the ordinance passes. 3-2. Next is the amendment to the recycling ordinance from $80 to $75. Motion, second, and vote is needed on the amendment.
Motion,
Sorry, who was that?
Mr. Brooks?
Tony also?
yes.
Okay,
Second.
and John? Mr. Belusko?
No.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
And Mr. Barrett?
No.
Okay, motion passes on the amendment, 3-2. Now, this is the ordinance as amended. Motion, second, and vote.
Motion?
Second,
Beth, and Tony?
yes.
Okay, Mr. Belusko?
No.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
And Mr. Barrett?
No.
Motion passes as amended. Okay. Next, I think we should take the amendments proposed to the budget. And we're going to do that the same way. Tim? Correct me if I'm wrong. We're going to first have a vote on the amendment, and then a vote on the amendment as amended. On the,
Right, there's gonna be a
on
vote.
the decrease as
There's gonna be a
amended.
vote on the, I think there was about 4 or 5 changes to the budget. You're gonna vote on those, and then depending on what happens there, you know, you can maybe even have a first reading on the budget.
We're talking the decrease in the overtime and the workman's comp, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the 4 or 5 things that were suggested, I think there's 5 of them, actually.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
5 of them.
right. Okay, so the first one is a decrease of the overtime budget by 200,000. We need a motion, second, and a vote on that amendment.
Motion,
Tony?
Second.
John? Mr. Belusko?
No.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
yes.
And Mr. Barrett?
No.
Okay. On the proposed amendment as amended. Motion, second, and vote?
Wait, what were we?
Which one's this, Jim?
No, yeah. Go, do all the amendments before
Right.
you do, there's no reason to vote on anything besides
Okay.
the amendments at this point.
Okay. Very good. Okay, next is the decrease the workers' compensation budget by 200,000.
Motion.
This is the amendment. Motion, Tony?
Second.
Beth? Mr. Belusko?
No.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
And Mr. Barrett?
No.
Okay, motion passes on that amendment. Next is to decrease the workers' compensation budget by 200,000.
Just did that one.
That was one we just did, Bill, Jim.
We're on to the sewer fee revenue.
Okay, hold on. Okay. Very confusing tonight. Okay, next is the increase the sewer fee revenue line item by 300,000.
Motion.
Tony
Second?
and John. Mr. Belusko,
No.
Mr. Marconi,
Yes.
Mrs. McBride,
Yes.
Mr. Brooks,
Yes.
and Mr. Barrett.
No.
Motion passes. Next is increasing the recycling fee revenue line item by 300,000.
Motion.
Tony? Second?
Second?
John? Mr. Belusko,
No.
Mr. Marconi,
Yes.
Mrs. McBride,
Yes.
Mr. Brooks,
Yes.
and Mr. Barrett.
No.
Motion passes. And finally, we have the increase the total fine revenue budget by 100,000. Motion, second, and vote.
Motion.
Second.
Beth and Tony. Mr. Belusko,
No.
Mr. Marconi,
Yes.
Mrs. McBride,
Yes.
Mr. Brooks,
Yes.
and Mr. Barrett.
No.
Motion passes. Okay, where to next then?
That was all of them. So do you want to do the budget? First reading?
Might as well.
Okay, so we're going to do the budget as amended by those amendments. Okay, this is the budget as amended. Motion, second, and vote.
Wait, Claire.
Jim, I think we are holding on here.
Did we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
wait 1
I
second.
think I have a question. Did we vote on the rental?
Yeah.
Jim, we voted on the rental?
Yeah.
No, we didn't do that.
Yeah, we have
Oh, we
one
didn't?
more vote on the rental increase.
Wait, you didn't change that one,
We didn't change that
No.
one, no?
No.
so we didn't,
Okay.
the rental ordinance, we didn't vote on that.
Right, and there's a couple things we didn't vote on.
Right.
Yeah.
Two resolutions.
When is the
Okay,
rent?
so we're not going to go on the budget yet,
Yeah,
as amended.
Doesn't matter, does it?
Well, yeah, because there's nothing else that you haven't voted on yet that affects the budget,
budget.
so if you guys, why don't you do everything else and do the budget last?
yeah, the rent, I think the rental, right.
We have two other resolutions and two more ordinances.
Okay, the two resolutions are, proper city officials are hereby authorized to take any and all necessary actions related to the sale of 5963 Public Square to George M. Albert or his designee for a purchase price of $400,000. Motion, second, and vote.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, that was Mike, and who was the second? Tony, okay. Mr. Belusko?
Yes.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
And Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Okay. Next is the resolution related to the Keystone Communities Program grant of $250,000 for the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development to be used for the First National Bank Building renovations project. Motion, second, and vote.
Motion.
Tony?
Second?
John? Mr. Belusko?
Yes.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Motion passes also. Next, we have the ordinance related to substantial amendment to the Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Plan for Program Year 2020.
Motion.
Tony?
Second.
Beth? Mr. Belusko?
Yes.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have an ordinance amending Section 7-230 of Chapter 7 of the Wilkes-Barre City Code of Ordinances entitled Fees regarding the rental dwelling/residence notification and tenant registration. Motion, second, and vote.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, Mike and Tony. Mr. Belusko?
Yes.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
And Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is the ordinance amending Chapter 30 of the Wilkes-Barre City Code of Ordinances entitled Utilities.
We're not gonna do those, right?
That-
'Cause we
that-
can-
No, there's no reason.
That we've already done.
No, we're not gonna do the mayor's, right? 'Cause we.
Right, you're gonna vote on the amended version of that.
Right.
Did we do the OCD one yet, the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we did the
Yeah.
ordinance.
Okay, so this is on the amended version of the utilities.
We did that already.
Right.
We
The
did,
mayor's proposed ordinances have been amended. They no longer even exist. They've been amended.
So we voted on the amendments and then the
Right.
ordinance as amended.
okay,
We don't
all
need
right.
to
Well, that's what I thought, yes.
We move on to the budget.
Okay, so that's those, and yes. Next, we move on to the budget, as amended. Motion, second, and vote.
Motion.
Second.
John, Tony, and John. Okay, Mr. Belusko?
No.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Barrett?
No.
Motion passes. And I believe that's it. Am I missing anything?
I think we got everything now.
All right. Mr. Belusko?
Charlie, I know this is probably more for Butch, but I know because of restraints here with the, how many we could have in attendance, Butch couldn't be here. But I know we did with the leaf collection in South Wilkes-Barre. We already did that, South Wilkes-Barre 1, South Wilkes-Barre 2. But I've got a number of people. I've put it on Facebook, and I've gotten a number of people that have come to me and said, Mike, I put them out there when you told me to, and I didn't see a truck. And I told Butch that. I didn't see one truck in South Wilkes-Barre, even though he said they were out there. But for as much as I'm around South Wilkes-Barre, which, as you know, my business, I'm road testing cars all over South Wilkes-Barre, I didn't see any. until I brought up a couple streets, and Butch sent them down, and they did do those streets, and I got a lot of praise for DPW for that. But I know right now it's not gonna happen for a while, but if I can, I will put in those addresses, at least the 3 or 4 that I have, if I may, and maybe we can get to them when the time is right. I know with all the snow, we won't be doing that anytime anymore. But thank you. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Marconi?
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mrs. McBride?
I just received one complaint from a resident that South Empire Street between East Northampton and Moy Allen hasn't been plowed or salted. So if we could just get that done as soon as possible, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Brooks? Didn't forget you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that the mayor asked for a $53 million budget, and we gave him a $53 million budget, so it's a balanced budget, and I am hopeful that there will be no layoffs. There shouldn't be. We worked off the numbers from the very first budget, so what we changed around still is a balanced budget. But the point I do want to make over and over again is that there needs, the voices of these low-income senior citizen homeowners definitely need to be heard. I'm glad the mayor is hearing the pleas from people who are financially and emotionally affected by COVID, and I'm glad we passed that budget this evening. I just want to say we met the mayor halfway in a compromise, but those low-income senior citizens, I still hope that we will discount that extra $25 for our most vulnerable senior citizens. According to the Pennsylvania Property Tax Rebate Program, they gave me statistics for just Wilkes-Barre area, and there are 791 low-income senior citizens making under $15,000. Now that's the school board, so I'm going to extrapolate 60% of those are probably in the city of Wilkes-Barre, which would be 500 senior citizens. Times $25 is $12,500. So in that budget, there is a padded room for that $12,500 to help those 500 most vulnerable senior citizens with a discount program on those fees. Again, I want to say that while we have had some discussions, then no discussions, we did meet halfway. I want to thank my colleagues for working fervently all day after we saw the amendments to the budget late in the afternoon yesterday. But I still particularly want to thank PFM for all their guidance and suggestions to bounce ideas off of them over the last couple of days too. And I look forward to continuing to work with PFM and the administration on fixing the structural problems that are in the budget for 2021 and 2022 and 2023. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. My final comment, I wasn't going to make one on this, but what we did collectively as council through that vote is just save the taxpayers a total of $15 a year. But what we simultaneously did is cut the overtime budget, slash the workers' comp budget, and a few other things along the way. So I'm very concerned about what just happened this evening for the sake of $15 a year between those two fees. That's what the taxpayers are going to realize. That's the difference they're going to realize from what the mayor had proposed to what actually happened this evening is $15. But again, simultaneously making those cuts in the expenditure side to make up for the difference in the revenue, and it's risky. It's very risky in my mind, in my opinion. I just hope that we're able to, saying we, the city is able to make that work. I just want to express my concerns about that. I think that you can appreciate and understand that as well. What we do here in council, it's nothing personal, but again, I had to express my reservations about what just occurred. I think the mayor had presented, the mayor and his administration, his finance department, and all of his assistants had presented what we believe was a couple of us believed was a fair and equitable budget, we will have to work with what it is. Okay, thank you.
Bill, can I address that?
You certainly may.
I can't move this, right? Okay. First of all, I just want to say I'm disappointed. You created what Tony's calling a balanced budget. It's not a balanced budget. You raised fluff numbers and you reduced numbers that are real. You're reducing workers' comp by 200,000. We may have one case that may cost us 200,000. Think about that. You reduced overtime. The service you got today and your constituents got today was done on overtime. It was done because we're able to get everybody out working extra shifts. You cannot just cut numbers if you don't have facts to do that. You're putting fluff numbers in this budget that are not realistic, and I wish you had some financial and business experience before you did this. You don't know what you're doing. You are not allowing us to create the revenue source that we need to run this city. You can put numbers in there as much as you want. You don't have a basis for those numbers. We cut overtime by $100,000 from last year. Now you want to cut another $200,000. This is your budget. I can veto this budget, but you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to run the city on the budget you put together. And I'm telling you something. We will not be able to make the payments that are necessary or the services. And Mr. Belisco, you asked me about possible layoffs. This was just confirmed today. I will not be able to run the city on the numbers you came together with. And I don't know where you got them from. You pulled them from someplace. They're not realistic, and I'm telling you something, you can't just cut numbers and say, I'm going to balance this budget. You balanced it on a number, you didn't balance it on fact or realistic numbers. I'll do my best to run this city because the people put me in office, and I'll do the best I can. But sir, I'm telling you right now, I'm looking at you right now, this budget you put together is not realistic. It's not factual, and I cannot perform what I need to do based on what you put together. Thank you.
Okay. There are no further comments by council members. We'll move into the public discussion. Now is the time. If you wish to call in on any council-related item, you can do so at this particular time. The line is open.
I can't hear you, ma'am.
Please state your name and where you're calling from.
All right, Kathy, just so you understand, I don't know why, but it's very difficult to hear you when you're talking. Very difficult. So you might want to tell the IT&T guy or AT&T guy, whatever he is there, about that. Okay? Now, I just want to tell you something. Mayor Brown, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Bob.
Okay, I just want to tell you something. Don't ever think that this council, they're out for one thing, for themselves, and there are already plans to get rid of you in 36 months because you're not in their little clique. But what I want to tell you, council members, is what are you giving up? Mayor Brown gave up money for health care and the salary, along with his assistant, Mr. McCormick, gave that up, but you basically took it. And Beth, once again, this is nothing personal against you, and I know your mom's going to get upset and your sister's going to call, but you got to realize something. You're clipping us for $41,166 a year. We're paying you over $600 a week for health care. And the only one so far standing up for the taxpayers was Mr. Marconi by giving up that buyout. And I'm going to ask Mr. Brooks, are you going to give up that $3,800, the buyout? Because what you're doing is you're making yourself look good on our dime. You understand? And Mr. Belusco, by you standing there with your big, deep voice, you're not going to give it up. You have one of the most successful auto businesses in South Wilkes-Barre, but yet we have to pay your health care. It's disgusting. You people, what you just did, you don't realize the damage you've just done to the taxpayers. There's going to be people getting laid off, but yet not one of you people, only Mr. Marconi, gave up that $3,800. And the problem is people say, oh, well, it's not that much. No, every dime counts. So what the mayor saved us, you took. I mean, there's people who don't make in 2 jobs $600 a week, and that's what we're paying in health care. And I don't understand how you people could go home and face yourselves knowing what you're doing to the taxpayers. And something else I want to bring up is Mr. Ryan. For years, he's saying it's state law that these council people have to be in the pension. That's not true, because if what I heard is true, Mr. Barrett was able to get out of that. And Mr. Barrett, if that's true, if you could explain that to the mayor, how maybe we could get the rest of these people out of this pension thing and get them off this health care. They are bleeding the taxpayers to death. I believe $166,000 a year for this council, and what else I brought up is for the rest of the clowns that were there before them, $180,000 a year. And I pointed out the one councilman who went on to work for the city full-time for 8 years, who unfortunately passed away. Since he's retired, has collected over $700 and some thousand in retirement and health care. We can't keep going on like this. And the reason the unions didn't come forward to give anything up is because, especially about Mrs. McBride and Mr. Belushko and Mr. Brooks taking his buyout. We can't afford this stuff. That's what's destroying this city. Exactly what happened here tonight. You know there's going to end up being layoffs. How's the mayor supposed to run the city if you don't have the income? This is a slap in the face to the taxpayers. And what I want to just close on this is, and if Mayor, if you can hear me, I want you to meet with Mr. Barrett and find out how he was able to get out of the pension, and let's see if we can get the rest of these clowns out of this pension stuff and see how we could cut their salaries, because we cannot afford to keep going on like this. I said this 30 years ago, and nobody listened to me because I'm supposed to be crazy, but it appears that I have an 8th grade education. I'm a little bit smarter than half these goofs on this council. So I'd like to know, is there anybody who would like to say anything?
I'll make a comment.
Hello?
Are you finished, Bob?
Let him finish first.
Well, I want to know, is Mr. Brooks going to give up his $3,800 a year? Is Mr. Belusco going to give up his health care? Right? And also, Beth, are you going to give up your health care? And how about taking a 50% pay cut? We cannot afford to pay. People are outraged when they find out how much these people are getting. Over $600 a week for health care. And what I understand, Beth, you could get on your husband's health care. And it's nothing against you. This is the issue. You know what it takes to have a little restaurant or something to try to make $600 a week? And Tony, if I could close on this, you know, you're helping the senior citizens. What about all the small businesses, the car dealers? How about the repair centers? How about the suppliers who sell everything in this city? Why can't we help them out too? Don't you realize they're being, you know, you're throwing yourself like you're a hero to the senior citizens, but what about the rest of the business people? I mean, the business people are suffering too in this city because of this pandemic and stuff. And plus of the stupidity of this council and the past councils. I mean, don't forget, PFM, every time I hear their name, I can almost throw up. Under the Layton administration, we paid them $250,000, and they have cost the taxpayers millions of dollars in increased fees and every tax that they could pass. And don't forget the calamity called Tony George administration. He cost us almost $750,000 fighting with the police department.
Thank you, Bob. Mrs. McBride, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to address, I take issue with the fact that Mr. Kadlubowski has said that I haven't given anything up, because I certainly have. Earlier this year, I took a 10% pay cut, so I make $11,139 a year. I don't take the pension. And as far as the health care goes, I've explained this time and time again. But now is the open enrollment time for my husband's work. And the new numbers now for the health care are $500 per pay for a family. Now, that is something that we cannot afford. And as I've said before, it speaks to a larger issue of the cost of healthcare in our country. I am very lucky to be able to be on the city's healthcare plan, and I'm very thankful for that. With that being said, my husband has opted out of the city's healthcare plan, which will save the city $12,000 next year. Myself and my son do have to stay on the plan, the city's healthcare plan, but I'm happy that we were at least able to, as a family, save the city $12,000 there. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, if no one else from council has anything to say?
I believe we have a call coming in, but go ahead.
Well, I'd like to make a comment on Bob's reference to myself. Point of clarification, Bob, thank you for your comments as always. Point of clarification though, over the years, whenever you brought this up about whether or not council should be entitled to part of the pension, I was only referring to the fact that there's nothing that says that it's illegal that council members cannot join the pension. I never made any reference to whether or not they can opt out of the pension. Never said that. That's not what I was referring to. I was just referring to your comments that it's illegal for council to be part of a pension plan. Just point of clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Please state your name and where you're calling from.
Mark Roberts, Wilkes-Barre.
Go ahead, Mr. Roberts.
You cut the workers' comp budget. I'm just curious, is Mr. Marconi's wife going to come back? She's been on workers' comp longer than she's worked for the city. So you're cutting all these budgets, but you have a council member whose wife's been on workers' comp longer than she's been at work.
Is that all?
Yeah, I mean, can we get some type of answer? No, not going to comment?
When you're done.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
You can comment if you wish. You don't have to.
I do choose to comment, but the only thing I can say is it's a personnel matter, so I can't say anything else other than that. Thank you.
Understood. Okay.
Please state your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, Jason Carr from Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania. I actually want, tonight, I want to actually agree with the mayor of the city of Wilkes-Barre. You actually have to look at numbers in a budget and understand them and accept them and execute them appropriately. And tonight, this city council did not do that. Looking at the overall picture, with the fees being raised, both on the sewer and on the recycling side, Mr. Brooks was concerned about the elderly receiving a 1.3% cost of living adjustment on a yearly basis. The average person making, let's say, $1,500 a year, that's only $16 per month increase in their Social Security check. And these fees are going to evaporate that. On top of it, the fund, I would like to know from the administration, is this $100,000 fund for the elderly, is that going to be an ongoing basis for them to be able to look upon as a saving grace if they run into hard times, being that these fees are now permanent? Mr. Kaldaboski had asked if these fees possibly could be for 1 year until the mayor works things out, but it would be nice to have clarification on that. Again, secondly, as the mayor alluded to, the $200,000 overtime budget cannot be controlled. In circumstances where maybe we have 5 more snowstorms, that $200,000 number is uncontrollable. Thirdly, you cannot control how many people hurt themselves at work. So that $200,000 in workers' compensation is completely meaningless. They do nothing to the budget. But if the mayor decides to manage to that, which he has to, kudos to him. I think overall in the city of Wilkes-Barre, there is a lack, just advice to the mayor. I think overall myself and others in the business community, as well as citizens, I think there's a lack of trust. And I think the mayor has to look at an overall picture of disseminating information to the public and correlating that to a long-term fiscal plan that puts the city in better standing. So on an annual basis, senior citizens, business people don't have to worry about what impending fee increases, what impending property taxes are there going to be because of, some shenanigans that may go on in City Hall. It was disturbing to hear Ms. Gilbert talk about some of the items that she learned about in terms of overtime, people not plowing streets until after 12 a.m. so they can receive overtime. Police working overtime at Shields Market in the middle of the night. That was told to me by somebody in the department. It's disturbing, and I think the mayor has to garner the trust of the electorate and let them know that he's actually working in the best interest of everyone, not just the few. When you look at the same people wanting to invest in the city, that's because there's a lack of trust. There's a lack of confidence in the city of Wilkes-Barre. Mr. Albert, he probably has his eye on 5 other properties in the city of Wilkes-Barre. I'm sure he does. He's one of the only people that are willing to take a risk. I actually purchased a property in the city of Wilkes-Barre, not that I wanted to, but the assessed value from the county was so low, I just decided to go with it. But I really didn't want to. With the increase in crime and the increase in taxes, it makes it hard to trust the city. As well, Mr. Kavlabowski, I have trust that Ms. Gilbert, as she stated in the last meeting, I trust that she is going to bring forth a package of reforms for compensation as well as benefits for the city council that will not take effect until the following administration of council. I'm sure she'll do that. Maybe she won't, then that's a different discussion. But as well, I'd like to bring, I have 40 seconds left. I would like the city to consider, I own 6 properties in the city of Wilkes-Barre that I pay a total of less than $1,100 for in city tax. When are you going to bring sensibility to the fact that all properties in the city are not taxed?
Mr. Chairman, time.
I think it would bring the budget into a much better handle.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Comments? Sure.
First of all, Mr. Carr, when you or someone else sees a police officer working overtime at Shields or some other market, they're not paid by the city, they're paid by Shields Market and the other places that they work. They work down at Geisinger, South Wilkes-Barre. Geisinger, South Wilkes-Barre pays for them. They're on special duty that they are paid for by the company that employs them on their off hours, not during their work hours. So I want to clarify that. It's easy to see someone that you think is doing wrong, but I'd ask to please ask for clarification before anyone jumps to thinking that these guys are doing something wrong. They're not. They're on their own time and they're on overtime that's paid by the businesses. Secondly, your question about the help that we're going to be doing for people that were adversely affected by the COVID. We have a $100,000 limit on that, and that's part of the COVID CDBG grant that we received. So it's going to be effective until that $100,000 is used up. So there are two things I wanted to clarify for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
State your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, Linda Joseph, Wilkes-Barre. Just a few questions on workman's comp. Not publicly giving names, of course, but how many city employees are actually on workman's comp currently? Is there a set limit of time before they stop receiving workman's comp benefits from the city's general fund, since the city is self-insured? Are they required to file for disability from the state after a period of time and removed from workman's comp? And is there abuse of the workman's comp benefits for long periods of time? And does the city investigate complaints and proof of abuse of this system? So just some questions. Thank you, and wishing everyone a safe and Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
I don't have the answers to how many people are on workers' comp right now, and I don't imagine you gentlemen might either, but I do know that there is a limited amount of time that you can be on workers' comp until some sort of decision is made, just speaking from seeing it from my own personal perspective. And I do know that there have been investigations in the past as to people that might have been on workers' comp and should not have been on workers' comp and were able to return to work. I've seen that firsthand, and I'm sure that practice still continues. It's not you go on workers' comp and we forget about you. That doesn't happen. So, but as far as the actual numbers, I wouldn't have them in front of me now, and I don't suspect anybody here would. But I'm sure it's something if you wanted to, you could get those numbers. Okay. Kathy, anything? Nothing? Okay. It appears as though that's the end of public discussion. I entertain a motion to adjourn. Somebody?
Mr. Chairman,
Sir?
before you do.
Sure.
I'd just like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. From all of council and the administration and mayor, good luck, be safe, and have a Happy New Year.
Thank you. The same
Thank
to
you.
you.
Thanks,
Hard to
Mike.
believe
Same
it's
to
true.
you.
Until I look at you. You're good. Great shirt and tie there.